Welcome to our seventh video in our series Bible Insights for Your Life of Faith. Have you ever tried to change? Well, in today's video, we're going to look at how we change by the power of the Holy Spirit. I want us to begin by actually going to a verse in Philippians. It's a verse that helps us to really understand that partnership with God, that partnership where both God acts in us and we train with God. So let's have a look at Philippians chapter 2, verse 12. Therefore, my dear friends, as you have always obeyed, not only in my presence, but now much more in my absence, continue to work out your salvation with fear and trembling. Continue to work out your salvation. Is that because our faith is uncertain? Is it because it's not all worked out? Is it because what Jesus did on the cross was not enough? The reality is that's not the case at all. The whole emphasis behind is like going down the gym. In the same way that to build muscle or train, you keep exercising. That's what this passage means. Continue to work out, continue to exercise, continue to train hard. When I played rugby, I had to keep training to remain at the top of my game, to be fit enough to be able to play, to be strong enough to make the tackle, to be fast enough to be able to run. If I didn't train, I wouldn't be fit. And although I could still play, I wouldn't be the best that I could be. But the reality is sometimes if we only look at the Christian faith in the way of training, it just becomes like trying, not training, just trying. Many of us have tried that whole thing of trying with New Year's Eve resolutions. About a week or a month or 2 months later, we've forgotten because we can't change by our own effort, by just trying harder. Here, Paul is actually saying train well. But there's a different dynamic going on. It's not just training, it's actually how God is working in us. It's really deep partnership language. Just look at the next verse, verse 13. For it is God who works in you to will and to act in order to fulfill his good purpose. For it is God who works in you to will and to act, to change your mind, to change your heart, and to change your actions. As we train, as we partner, God also works in us by his Holy Spirit. What does it mean to train? To train means things like learning to read our Bible. To train means learning to rest. To train means learning to worship, to spend time with others, to hear comments and questions and things that challenge us when we're accountable to one another. To train sometimes means fasting or sometimes means celebration. So often in the Christian life, these things that help train us, we use the word as spiritual disciplines, as if it's something bad or heavy. No, in the same way that you train for sport, training is a good thing. It's a positive thing, and it's something that really helps. And it's as we train that we get to understand more of God. As we train, God changes and works in us. The reality is, it's as we spend time in his presence, we are changed. If we don't spend time in his presence, we're not changed. Training just helps us to learn to do that. Training just helps us to grow in our faith muscles, to grow in our gifting muscles, to grow in the spiritual life as God does it in and through us. It's partnership language, always has been, always will be. But what's the whole point? Well, it's actually so that our lives become more like Jesus, so that our lives can reflect more of God to the world around us. It's so that our lives start to convey more of his kingdom and more of his hope and his grace. In the book of Galatians, that letter that Paul wrote, there's a real comparison in chapter 5 between those who stop following God and those who follow God. And they describe following God in the fruits of the Spirit, the things that actually change as we grow on with God. Let's just have a look at the list now. Galatians 5:22. But the Holy Spirit produces. The Holy Spirit produces. As we train, the Holy Spirit works in us to produce and change us. The Holy Spirit produces this kind of fruit in our lives: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. There is no law against these things. Do you want your life to reflect more love, more joy, more peace, more patience, more kindness, more goodness? Do you wish to have more self-control, whether it's to train better or to live life better? Maybe to learn to hold your tongue. Maybe, as Paul talks about, to reflect on the things that matter, to give thanks to God, to take captive every thought that runs away, every thought that twists and turns, to actually place them under Jesus and say, God, what does this mean for me? To be able to let things go, to enable our shame to be transformed, and to enable our guilt to be dealt with at the cross. You see, as we journey with God, as we spend time, His Holy Spirit produces this fruit. As we create more space for God, God invades that space and brings even more transformation than we could ever ask or imagine. So, what's the key? What's the real secret? Well, it's back in Galatians chapter 5, verse 25. Since we live by the Spirit, let us keep in step with the Spirit. Just imagine it. You're going for a run, but you don't know how long that run's going to be. The reality is you often have a pace setter alongside you. Someone who stops you running too fast, but also stops you running too slow. Someone who runs, who knows the way, who maybe guides you or says left or right, this is the way, walk in it. That's what God longs for us to do. To in our everydays, as we train to become more like Him, to allow His Spirit to change us, to allow His Spirit to set the pace in our lives, to allow His Spirit to journey with us, leading and guiding us, being that pace setter, and allowing His transformation to happen. So at the end of this video, I want you to do one thing. I want you to stop, to choose to lean into God, to say, God, I trust you. Thank you that you're working in me. Now show me the ways I can partner to enable your work to be more effective, that I might be able to share your blessing with the world around me, that I might be able to reflect you better to my friends, to my family, and that I might demonstrate more of the fruit of the Spirit, more love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, thoughtfulness, and self-control.